Hi everyone, it's Kelly here. Please excuse the voice. I am recovering from a virus that has affected my throat and voice, so apologies that I sound a little weird. Today I am doing the Mid-year Book Freakout tag. Is that what it's called? Yes, the Mid-year Book Freakout tag. I've never done one of these videos before, but I've been seeing other people's pop up and remembering from last year as well, and how much I enjoy watching those to see what people have been enjoying, what people have, got in store for the next 6 months, and sort of having that opportunity to reflect on what you still want to achieve in the second half of the year. So I'm recording this towards the end of June, and I assume will be going up onto my channel in sort of beginning to mid-July. So I'm recording ahead a little bit. That's okay. Means I only have to do, if I record a couple of videos in one day, I only got to put makeup on one time. That's right. That's right. I am that lazy. Okay. Right. So let's get straight into it. The first question is my best book that I've read so far in 2022. And for me, that has to be Drop Bear by Evelyn Araluen. This is a poetry collection, and it was the winner of the Stella Prize here in Australia this year. It's the first year that poetry was eligible. Previously, it was just for novels, I believe. And this year, poetry and a couple of other formats were able to be included, and a poetry collection won. And to me, although I haven't read the other shortlisted books for that prize, to me this seems a worthy winner because it is an absolutely stunning poetry collection that really is very place-based, as in the author has managed to make a poetry collection about particular place. And what I haven't said is the author is an Aboriginal Australian, so it's a First Nations author here in Australia, and the connection to place is a really important aspect of Aboriginal Australian culture, and that really came across in this book, but in a really accessible way as well. Something that I was able to relate to because I live in the place, or have lived in places that she mentioned in this book. It also talks a lot about the impact of colonialism, both in the past but also ongoing today, for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia, and with the kind of thing that could, I imagine, if you were a First Nations reader from a different country, that you would be able to relate to as well. Just those ongoing issues that go on and on and on, decades, hundreds of years after these events occur, because they're still felt today and they're still part of the culture today. So it's, this book was so impactful to me. And of all of the books that I gave 5 stars to so far this year, this was the one that stood out to me as being my favorite, the best book that I've read this year. So, Drop Bear. If you haven't already read it, you definitely need to. So grab yourself a copy. The next prompt is the best sequel you've read so far in 2022. I actually don't think I've read very many sequels, possibly just one, but it was a doozy. So that is this one, The Tea Dragon Festival. I read The Tea Dragon Society last year. I reread it. And then read this one, the second one. There are 3. I haven't got the third one yet, but I will, and I will definitely read it because I'm 100% sure that it's going to be amazing. Just as this one was. This was also a 5-star read for me. And if you haven't already found this collection, these graphic novels, they are so wholesome and something that many people will enjoy, I'm sure. So that's those. The third prompt is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I've got 2 books for this one. This one is Rose, The Extraordinary Voyage of Rose de Freycinet, the Stowaway Who Sailed Around the World for Love by Suzanne Faulkner. So basically this is a narrative from the history books. Well, not from the history books. She was not written about in the history books. That's the point. But she existed. This is a real person who sailed with her new husband around the world. She wasn't supposed to. She stowed away. And she had observations. She wrote things down. And I'm really interested to read her story and to learn more about her as a person of history, but also to just enjoy being immersed in the narrative from this book as well. And the other book to show you was this one that I'm very excited about, When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I only just received this one. Essentially, so Kelly Barnhill wrote The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which was one of my favourite reads from last year. It's a beautiful middle grade book, and if you haven't already read it, you should. It's really worthwhile. This is not for children. This is a book for grown-ups. And basically, it's set in 1955 in Wisconsin. In a world where girls and women are taught to be quiet, the dragons inside them are about to be set free, and nothing will ever be the same again. So basically, hundreds of thousands of ordinary women become dragons and fly off, leaving a trail of destruction, which is a very obvious metaphor for the rage that exists inside of us because of all of the things that we have to put up with. And in 1955, that would have been amplified for sure. So this, I think, is a book that is going to be amazing, just based on Kelly Barnhill's previous book that I really enjoyed. And also, this is just stunning, absolutely stunning book. I'm really, really keen to get to it. Okay, the next prompt is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now, I am not really someone who tracks these sorts of things. However, when I thought about it, there is actually a book coming out in September that I'm very excited about. It is the 4th book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. It's coming out on September 27th, Nevermore 4, and it's going to be called Silverborn, The Mystery of Morrigan Crow. I have read the first 3 books in that series, and they are amazing. Pretty sure I've given 5 stars to each of them. I've really, really enjoyed that series so much. So I'm very excited for the 4th book to be coming out. As soon as I finished reading the 3rd book, I was like, when is this next one coming out? I'm very, very excited. There's some ongoing kind of longer term parts of the narrative that I'm interested in finding out the next bit of. But also, I just really enjoy all of the characters that we've met, her school friends, the characters that live in the hotel with her and Jupiter, and just some fantastic world building that's gone on. So I'm excited to be immersed in that world again. Okay, my biggest disappointment of this year. When I thought about this, I decided on The Dark Interval by Rilke. And the reason that it was so disappointing to me, I think I gave it a rating of maybe 3 stars. So it's not the lowest rating that I've given this year, but I was actually disappointed by it because to me, it had received hype. Him as an author had received hype. I had bought into that hype, and then I read the book and found it not very good and not very helpful either, because at the time I was in a grief period, and this is supposed to be a book of writings about grief, and I didn't find anything that he had to say helpful or insightful in any way, to be honest. So it really was quite disappointing. The moments were very few and far between when I was able to get something out of it, which was really disappointing. So yeah, that was my biggest disappointment. My biggest surprise, again, there were, I've read quite a lot of really good books this year, but my biggest surprise, I think, was Brokeback Mountain, because I picked it up on a whim at the library, so I don't have a copy here with me, unfortunately, because I don't own it. I picked it up at the library because I was like, oh, it's quite short. I didn't realise, one, that this was a book, and two, that it was as short as it is. So I picked it up. I was like, that'll be a quick read, kind of in between reads. I wasn't expecting a lot. And so then when I read it and loved it and was just so moved by it, I was really, really surprised. I guess I haven't seen the film, but I vaguely know what it's about. So I kind of had that vague notion of where it was going. But yeah, it was just really, really interesting and as I say, moving. So that was one. The other big surprise for me was that I have a new favourite Jane Austen, which is Persuasion. So previously, Pride and Prejudice has been my favourite Jane Austen for like years and years and years. And Sense and Sensibility would have been my second. I read through all of Austen last year, and this was my final one that I read in January, and was very pleasantly surprised because, it's now my new favourite. So very excited to have a new favourite Austen, and to be able to reread this one in the future and enjoy it again. So that's that. Okay. I think, where are we? Okay, favourite new author, debut or new to you. The author I've chosen for this is the author of Drop Bear, Evelyn Araloon. I've never read anything that she's written before, and after I finish this, I literally want to read literally anything she's ever written in her entire life. So she will be an auto-buy author for me in the future, and I definitely want to look through her backlist. And also she has written articles online and so on, which I'm interested to read as well. So this will have to be my favourite new author for me. Yeah. Okay, the next one's a bit of a silly one, and it is your newest fictional crush. I am not really somebody who has crushes on fictional characters anymore. I'm an old lady. However, in the spirit of answering this question, I think if I were to have a crush on somebody from one of my books that I've read this year, it is going to be the amazing John Beck from Rusho. And this is a book that I read a few months ago now, and he's sort of like this mysterious character, and he was very intriguing. So if I were to have a crush on somebody, it's going to be John Beck from Rusho. And then my newest favourite character, so I've got two. One is also from Rusho, and that is Mary Davidson, who is the protagonist in this book. She's just such a quirky character, and I really, really enjoyed reading about her. And the other is Anne Elliot from Persuasion, who I just found to be a really likeable, unproblematic Jane Austen heroine, who really didn't have any flaws that were being solved through the book, which most of her characters do. That is the kind of the main basis of the plot, is the heroine and her love interest kind of getting over their flaws, but that wasn't the case in this one. There were flawed characters in it for sure, but the protagonist and the love interest were not them. So yeah, it was really more just them kind of like finding their way back to each other. So that was really lovely, and I really enjoyed Anne as a protagonist. Books that made me cry. I kind of take crying as excuse me, as being a mark of a book that has done its job. I'm sure I have cried in more than these two books that I'm going to show you, but I wanted to mention these two because I think they're both wonderful. And one of them is Sorrow and Bliss, which I completed, and I'll be talking more about in my June wrap-up. I sobbed at one point in this book. It's also really funny. and a really great book. I'll talk more about it in my wrap-up, but definitely read this one if you were thinking about it. It's great. And then the other one is Now That I See You by Emma Batchelor that I read earlier in the year. This is a book about that's kind of tracking a relationship that changes because one of the two people in the relationship work out that they are trans, and then sort of begin transitioning in an identity sense, and sort of told from the perspective of the other person in the partnership as she watches her partner of a some time that she's been living with and has known for some time, watching them transition and sort of feeling really multiple ways at the same time because of the changes that are happening, and loving that their partner is becoming more themselves and trying to be encouraging and a supportive partner, but also watching as the relationship falls apart, sadly. I cried like a baby at the end of this book. It was just so sad. So, but like beautiful as well. So I really would encourage you to read this book if you ever come across it, or seek it out if that sounds like something you're interested in. Okay. Books that made you happy. Okay, books that made you happy. I did not cry in these books, but these books make me so happy. They're just so wholesome and beautiful. Seriously, you have to read them. They're amazing. So grab yourself copies of these because they're great. They make me so happy. Okay. The most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. Now, I've already showed you this beautiful book, When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill, which is absolutely stunning, like absolutely stunning. The other book, which I've also shown before on this channel, is Pandora, that has this beautifully, I've never bought a book that has that before, and it's just stunning to me. It also has sort of this like navy blue colour on the top and bottom. It also has a gorgeous cover as well. So those are my two most beautiful books, I think, anyway, that I've bought so far this year. Okay. Two more questions to go, but the second last one that I'm about to answer is the most complicated one. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? So this was the like reflective part in terms of me kind of checking in with how I'm going with my challenges this year. So at the beginning of this year, I started the Australian Reading Challenge. That challenge is going really well. I've read 8 out of the 12 prompts, so I only have 4 more prompts to go, which is a book with, I haven't written the entire thing down, I've just written the basics. I've written number 5, place name. So that's a book that has an Australian place name in the title. I haven't done that one yet. Number 9, which is a book set in the bush or the outback. Number 10 is an Australian classic. I haven't done that yet. And number 12 is revisiting a book that I read when I was at school, an Australian book that I read when I was at school. So I've got 4 more prompts to go. So that one's going really, really well. I've read actually probably more than, because my goal at the outset was I wanted to actually read 15 Australian books this year. I would say I've probably already achieved that, just because I know I've read lots of other Australian books as well that I haven't included in the prompts. So I would say that I'm probably, if not at that goal, very, very close, like within a book or 2. So the other challenge that I started at the beginning of the year was a classic a month. And that one I'm not doing as well on. I've read 3 out of the 12 prompts for that one. So those were, I read Things Fall Apart, which I've put for prompt number 3, Brokeback Mountain that I've put for prompt number 8, and Persuasion that I've put for prompt number 9. So those are the 3 that I've included there. So I've still got a bit of a ways to go, but I figure because my Australian reading challenge, I'll probably be able to wrap up pretty soon, like in the next couple of months. Then I can kind of focus on the reading classics more towards the end of the year. Then, on a whim, I decided that I would like to try and read all of the 2022 Miles Franklin Award long list. So far I read 2. The 2 that I've read are The Airways and 100 Days. I've already talked about 100 Days in my May wrap-up, I think. And I'll be talking about The Airways in my June wrap-up. I did not enjoy The Airways. I did enjoy 100 Days, but I don't know that it will be a winner for me. Since then, the shortlist has been announced. So I've updated the challenge that I put together for this to write in which ones were in the shortlist. Of the 2 I've read, only 1 is from the shortlist. So I'm going to try really hard to read all of the shortlist before the winner is announced. And then I will continue reading the rest of the long list after that. So I've got a few books there that I want to get to before the end of the year. One of the books that was in the Miles Franklin long list has been withdrawn, so I now only need to read 11. I also joined another challenge called Whittle Down Our Bookshelves, which is all about reading books that we own already and potentially have owned for some time. I have read 0 because I'm reading all of these new shiny books, so I definitely need to read some books for that challenge. There's only 3 prompts for that one, but I definitely want to read more books that I already own that are on my shelves that have been there for some time. So in terms of what I need to read before the end of the year to meet goals that I'm setting for myself, I mean, realistically, I don't need to read anything particular by the end of the year, but I want to because I want to achieve these goals that I've set for myself this year. I didn't meet some of my goals at the end of last year, and I was a bit disappointed by that, so I want to try my best to try and get through all of these goals that I'm setting for myself. Okay. The last prompt is a bit of a kind of anticlimax for me because it is a favourite book to movie adaptation that you've seen this year. I don't watch a lot of television. I don't watch a lot of movies. And I sat there trying to think of a movie, number one, that I've seen this year. Mainly the movies that I've seen this year have been like Disney films that are not book adaptations. So, but one thing I did do was I did binge watch the entire 4 seasons of Lark Rise to Candleford because my husband got a cheap deal on a subscription service that he's going to get rid of, and I looked through and I had heard about it, but I hadn't seen it before. So I decided, because we're only going to have it for 2 months. And also, it was while I had COVID, so my brain wasn't working well enough to read, so I was watching television then, but I was watching that. So that's the only thing that I can think of that it's not even a movie, it's a TV show, but it is an adaptation it's not just one book, it's more than one book. And it was quite good. I quite enjoyed it for what it was, so that was quite fun. But yeah, a bit of an anticlimax because I don't really watch movies or TV very much. I prefer to watch stuff on like YouTube, like shorter form things. And occasionally I will watch something on a subscription service, but not so much movies because I don't know whether it's just like I don't like to commit the time, because usually a movie is at least an hour and a half or more. So yeah, I kind of have to be really in the mood to see it. For me to commit that time. And I guess the only other things that I do sometimes watch are sometimes I'll watch Jane Austen adaptations, but I haven't watched any this year. So maybe coming up towards the end of this year I will do that. There are still a few that I haven't seen, so I definitely want to get to those at some point. So that's pretty much it. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. It's been quite fun. I've quite enjoyed doing this and kind of thinking about the books that I've already read this year and what I want to achieve in the second half of the year to kind of give myself a bit of a kick to keep moving and to keep sort of working towards those goals, especially when you sort of get a little bit bogged down with work and things like that. I guess being sick for as long as I've been sick, because I was homesick with, I had sinusitis, then I got COVID, so I was out of work. I didn't go to work for 3 weeks for that. I went back to work for 2 weeks, and then I got this, so I've been away for a week now. So having, excuse me, having a bit more time to actually read has probably been a good thing, although with COVID, the brain fog was not good, so yeah, I wasn't able to do as much reading as I would have liked while I was homesick with COVID, but this time around it's been a bit better. It's just been the respiratory symptoms, so it hasn't been quite so bad. I've been able to actually think and, get a bit of reading done rather than having to just sort of plonk myself in bed or in front of the telly. So that's been good. Anyway, enough about that. Thank you so much for watching. Have you done this tag? Nobody tagged me, by the way, but if you, and I'm not going to tag anybody, but if you would like to be tagged, consider yourself tagged, and feel free to shout me out if you do make a video or share it on another platform like Instagram. I'd love to see what you have been reading. I really enjoy watching these tag videos for the Mid-year Book Freakout tag, and just sort of seeing what people have been, what's been sticking in people's heads and what kind of interesting books they're acquiring. And I especially love looking at the beautiful books that people have bought this year. All right, so I will talk to you on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.